my skin so gorgeous. We thank the life gorgeous. Thank the life gorgeous. I love the life gorgeous. Its torso is so tight.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Life Gorgeous. My name is Craigers. This is where I share my magical life in hopes of improving your life. The Wolves are back in the playoffs. They're back in the playoffs. And I have a special guest, a friend of mine who covers the Timberwolves for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. And, ladies and gentlemen, he has a new book out called Ant, all about Anthony Edwards. Chris Hine, ladies and gentlemen.
Good to be here, Craig. And nice of the Wolves to be coming out to your neighborhood in a couple days here. It's very sweet of them to set that up for you.
Yes. Before we get to your Ant book called Ant, we now know we're going to play the Lakers. I was rooting for the Warriors to beat the Clippers so we would play Denver. Mm-hmm. I'm worried about the referees. And first of all, the Lakers are good. They have talent. But they also, I think the league would like them to advance as far as possible. You call me a cynic. I just know about the ghost of David Stern and the Sacramento Kings. And I want you to know something. And I want to ask if you talk to Finchy about this during the week coming up for Saturday's game in Los Angeles. I looked at the last box score that we played them once when with Luka, and Ant got tossed 2 technicals. But the Lakers shot 20 more free throws. They shot 40. We shot 26. They shot 46. And 34 of the free throws were for Austin Reeves, LeBron, and Luka. Is that something you haven't talked to them yet because they have a day off? But
right.
Is that a storyline potentially?
Well, it is among the fan base. I mean, I've been seeing the social media chatter all day yesterday and into today that everybody's anticipating. You know, I think our mutual friend Kyle Teige tweeted that Jaden McDaniels has already been whistled for his 3rd foul.
Game 1 hasn't started. I saw that.
Exactly,
that was funny.
Yeah. So I think, listen, that's going to be a big focus for the Wolves and the fans. I don't know how much the Wolves can let that get into their heads because they've had issues with composure and officiating and not moving on when the whistles don't go their way. So I think, if you're them in practice this week, you got to be drilling in like, hey, listen, if the whistles don't go our way, we got to move on. We got to move on to the next play because dwelling on what happened or the calls that they're getting is not going to be beneficial in the long run of this series.
Did you get a sense that they wanted to play Denver, or did they not talk about it?
I think in their heart of hearts, yes, they wanted to face Denver. I think that's probably a fair thing to say, but it is what it is. And you could have put yourself in a situation to play Denver, if you had beaten Milwaukee earlier in the week, or won one of those other games somewhere along the way, right? So you only have yourself to blame for not getting the ideal playoff matchup that you wanted. For not getting home court, although I do think they're a good road team, so I don't think home court really matters too much to them.
Right.
But yeah, I think if you were to give them truth serum, they would have preferred Denver, or if there was a way to get Houston, but with Houston being the 2 seed, you would have had to traverse the play-in, and that's always dangerous terrain to try to go through.
You're not a Wolves fan, I heard you say. You have to be unbiased. Is that how that works?
That's how that works. Yeah. Objective, unbiased. That's what they tell you in journalism school all those years ago. But I think in journalism and the way that sports media is covered today, it's kind of and I think Bill Simmons is probably the ultimate example of this, where, you're a fan of a certain team or a certain market and you develop a following and a passion and based on that passion.
Right.
And that's where sports media in, my lifetime has really headed, is passionate and thoughtful fans of a certain market or a team covering said team
right
as objectively as possible.
I saw you interviewing, you interview Finchy all the time at practice. I saw a video. You were
Mhm.
holding a coffee,
Yep.
very casual. Did anyone say, "Come on, Chris, put the coffee down"?
You know what's funny? I walk in, I have Starbucks regularly, especially for like shoot arounds and stuff like that. A couple players have noted, and I always get like a super size, like a Tranta size from Starbucks. So like Dante DiVincenzo and Rudy Gobert have commented about how large that coffee is over the years, and they just like shake their heads at me like, "What are you doing, man?" Dante's always like, "Can you get coffee from somewhere else besides Starbucks?" And I'm like, "Listen, man, it's convenience. You know, it's like you know what you're getting, right? You know,
Right.
that's." So they're always disappointed in me when they see me walk in with a big thing of Starbucks.
I'm counting on Dante to have a big series against the Lakers. I'm counting on him, counting on Rudy. I can't wait to see what the Lakers do. If they go small, they keep Jackson Hayes in there more for Rudy. If they go small, we got to feed Rudy, right?
You have to, or else you're not playing into what your perceived advantage would be.
Right.
And I think Rudy's done a much better job the last 15 to 20 games of the season here of really fitting in offensively.
Yeah.
If you've been watching the games, I think the way that he passes out of the kind of the short roll free throw line area has been really good. He's been much better around the rim. He's been, catching passes easily. Like it hasn't looked as awkward as it can be at times. He's really been a weapon. It's gone from hoping that he does those things well to being a legitimate weapon, I think, in the offensive end the last 20 games or so.
He had one of the games he drove on the right side and actually banked in a short hook. And if it doesn't bang off the backboard and miss the rim completely, I'm always surprised. But no, he could be. I just think he could be a factor. We got to get Nas going. It's. I hope the refs aren't a big part of the series, and I hope I know we'll show up, but I just don't know to what extent. Let us talk about this wonderful book. First-time author Chris Hine. When does the book come out? I know you could order it. I ordered it early. I also know powerful people, and I got an advanced copy. When does it come out?
June 3rd is the official release date. So if the Wolves could, make a run to the conference finals, and
that would help.
That might help book sales a little bit to have them in the news for the next 6 weeks.
How does a guy decide? I'm sure you agonized over this. Do I write a book on Anthony Edwards or D'Lo?
The decision was made for me. My agent called me up and said, "Hey, there might be interest in a book on Anthony Edwards," and next thing I know, we're getting a meeting with my publisher HarperCollins, pitching the idea. It was the day before Game 7 of the Denver series last year that I met with them via Zoom, and that afternoon, I was very fortunate that it happened so quickly. Especially because I've tried to get a book sold in the past and didn't get anywhere.
No Mariah Carey book. They didn't want you to.
Well, let's not rule that out. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds there. But it was a book on like Notre Dame football that I and another friend of mine, Matt Fortuna, we tried to get sold for a long time, didn't get anywhere, and then this pops up on my plate in May of last year. And in one afternoon, we had the meeting in the morning, and then my friend Joe, my agent, calls me back and is like, "You have a book deal like that afternoon," and that's how quickly it happened and came together.
How long did it take you to write it, and how much time did you spend down in the Atlanta area where Ant is from?
I spent all of August in Atlanta. I kind of drove down there. I drove from Minneapolis to Atlanta. Making some pit stops along the way to see friends. And so, all of August was in Atlanta, got an Airbnb down there, interviewed as many people as I could from his youth and, teenage years, college as well, made a drive or two to the University of Georgia to talk to some people there. And then I think over 4 months, like 3-4 months was the whole writing process. It happened. I tell people I blacked out and I wrote a book. Like that's kind of how fast it was. But I'm I'm single. I don't have a family. I don't have a partner. Like, this is what my life was for 3-4 months, from basically mid to late July until, mid-November. I was still doing my job at the Star Tribune and still filing stories and covering the team once that got rolling in October. And I was hoping that, things were going to be nice and quiet during training camp for the Timberwolves. That they were not going to make any major moves that were going to alter the course of the franchise or anything like that. And, so I'm expecting late September, like, okay, this is going to be fine. We'll cruise into training camp. It'll be nice and easy. And then boom, they trade Cat.
Yeah.
And so that made things a little more difficult for October, but we got through it.
Was the book more difficult to write than you thought it would be?
It was about as difficult as I thought before, and just the self-doubt that creeps into your mind at times, the imposter syndrome, like, why am I the one to do this? That creeps into your mind as well. And again, I'm, especially when I was in Atlanta, you're alone. I don't really know too many people down there. I don't have good friends down there. So not much of a support system on a daily basis. So you're just kind of in your head
right
a lot. And so those were some tough days, but at the same time, there were times where I really enjoyed it, where if I knew an interview was really good, or I was really excited to get a couple anecdotes and combine them together, like, that was fun. That was actually a lot of fun. So there were some tough days, but there were some really fun days too, where I had the interviews, I had them transcribed, and I could just write. And that was fun. That was the fun part.
So you captured the essence of Ant, which is he is a charismatic player, but also a charismatic person. Very unique personality. I'm pulling for him to continue to get better and better with the cerebral part of the game, the passing, the decision-making, because he gets double teamed and blitzed all the time. As you're around the coaching staff, how much of an emphasis is it with Ant improving the cerebral part of the game?
It's been the thing that he's worked probably the most at with the coaching staff. And I would also add, like, Mike Conley the last 3 years as well, just trying to pick his brain, the coaching staff, going over film. I remember earlier this season, we were talking to Finch about Ant's decision-making, especially in late games. And I don't know where it's at now, but, he said last season, Ant probably made the right decision late in games 50% of the time, right, when they would go back and review the film. This season, I think it was up around like 85, 90%.
Right. That's
so
good.
This has been his growth curve. And I think I put this in the book, but it's like I play the piano, and there are some people that, are natural piano players where they could just hear a song or hear a band playing and they could just fit right in, right? Or there are some people who can be really good piano players, but they need the sheet music, they need the practice time, they need the rehearsal time and the reps.
Right.
And Ant is the latter. Ant needs the reps. He needs somebody to show him how to play the chords, how to play the melody. Like, he needs all that, right? But you do it, and you do it enough times, he will be really good at it.
Right.
And so that is where he's at in his career at 23 years old. It's compiling the reps. It's compiling the institutional knowledge of the game. It doesn't come quickly in that sense, but it does end up happening for him, and he does acquire the knowledge and is learning from year to year. And that's, I think, where he's at 23 years old. And I tell people all the time, like, when he's 26, 27, 28, and he's had more years of this stuff just in his brain and naturally wired into him like that, where's he going to be career-wise at that point when he does have more knowledge of the game?
Yeah. I've always said, unlike a Michael Jordan who played for Dean Smith, I think he played all 3 years, not 4 years, 3 years, but he's more fundamentally sound coming into the league. And Ant is this physical specimen who has worked on his jump shot amazingly. Led the league this year, yesterday, three-pointers made. But yeah, it doesn't come as easily to him. The court sense, the what I call the floor game. I do, in the book, I was a little surprised. There was a passage where Chris Finch early on called Tim Connolly. No, it was Gerson. Was it Gerson?
It was Gerson, yep.
He called Gerson Rosas, the former president of basketball operations for the Wolves, and said, I don't think he's going to get it. I just don't think Ant's going to get it.
Yeah, that was a story that, I was happy that Finch shared that with me when he said it to me, but I was surprised.
Yeah.
It's a really revelatory thing, because that first year was rough for Ant, whether it was, reading defenses, things like that. Playing defense too, playing off-ball defense was a struggle for him, and still is sometimes. But yeah, that was a revelatory moment, and I think it was an important moment in Finch's career and just their relationship as well, because he said, Gerson just told me, like, well, this is why you're here.
Right.
Like, this is not going to be an easy process. You're here to develop this kid. You're here to make sure that this kind of very unpolished but promising prospect gets the attention and the coaching that he really needs, because that's how the Wolves viewed him coming into the draft. They viewed him as a lot of potential, but someone who's going to need time to really hone his skills. And Gerson brings in Finch, and because they had a previous relationship from their days in Houston. And you see what the results have been over the last 5 years, and how, again, steadily Ant has made leaps physically and with his shot, and the physical aspects of his game. The more mental aspects have been more gradual over the years, but he's getting to a point where, he's learning. He's still learning at 23 and in year 5.
What's the relationship with Chris Finch and Ant? Because as an outsider, I know they like each other. I always hear that Finch is hard on him, which is good. But I think in the book, it was maybe there's more arguing than I realized between the two. Are they dropping F-bombs at each other?
Sometimes. Yeah, I think so. But I think, that speaks to the nature of the candor and the comfort with which they have with each other. They're able to go at each other a little bit, challenge each other, say what they want in the heat of the moment, and nobody gets offended by it. That's because I think Ant has always had that kind of coach in his life, dating back to his youth football days in Atlanta. He had coaches that got on him, that did not take it easy on him because he was so gifted or talented. He had coaches that were always making him do the drills over again if he didn't go hard enough. Making sure that, he wasn't being lazy in practices or in games. And Finch is kind of in that lineage of the kind of coaching Ant has had his entire life. And I think Ant likes that kind of coaching. He's used to it. He knows how to respond to it. And that's the relationship they have. So if they do go at each other, I think Naz Reid put it best in the book. Naz will see them going at it, or they'll have a moment where it looks like they're angry at each other or whatnot, and Naz is just sitting there because he's been here for all 5 years of Ant's career, and he'll just say, "Oh, they're going to be fine. Like they'll be fine. This is just them going through it. They'll be fine." And then inevitably, they always come back together, pat each other on the back, and everything's fine. Yeah.
For those on the who don't know that much about Anthony Edwards, it's kind of common knowledge. He had a rough upbringing where both his mother and grandmother passed. That's covered very well in the book. Also, I thought it was odd, because I didn't know your deadline, that you somehow had the Phoenix game this year where Finchy gets tossed, and it was the famous quote from Nikhil Alexander Walker: "Coach woke up and chose violence." He was confrontational, because you have to pick your spots as a coach when you're going to blow up at the team. I find that anecdote interesting, but how did you include that in the book with the timeline?
Thankfully, that was essentially right at maybe the last minute that I was making final changes to everything.
Okay.
And I just I think it was like literally the next day, I pulled up that part of the book, and I was like, "Oh, this will fit perfectly in with that section where I talk about kind of Finch and film and their relationship." And so I was able to get Ant's quote from that night in there. I think I might have thrown the Nikhil quote in there as well. But yeah, it was just kind of really like the last thing I actually added to the book was that quote. Yeah.
Friends, the weather is warming up and I get to spend more time in my beautiful backyard. I've got a covered patio with a stunning stainless steel grill. And when my friends come over, I'll throw on some steaks. And then they ask me what I'm cooking. And I just love to say, Omaha Steaks. The name is impressive. Omaha Steaks. They've been around since 1917. Legendary. Classic. What you cooking, Lord Kilby? Omaha Steaks. Ah, yes. It's all part of the Life Gorgeous. From handcrafted steaks to spring grilling favorites, Omaha Steaks delivers the world's best steak experience. Enjoy USDA certified tender steaks, juicy burgers, and so much more. And now during their spring savings event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code GORGEOUS at checkout. Heartland quality food delivered right to your door. Every steak is perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand cut by master butchers. Grass-fed, grain-finished beef has more marbling for exceptional flavor and is the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. The fan favorite filet mignon has earned the coveted distinction of USDA certified tender. I might get the filet this time and the ribeye and those fun little caramel apple tartlets because I'm a bad boy. Bring home the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their spring savings event. And for an extra $30 off, use promo code GORGEOUS at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with promo code GORGEOUS at checkout. See site for details. And the book ends with the Olympic gold. Mm-hmm. Anthony Edwards on the Olympic team in Paris. He played very well until the last two games, did not start the last two games. It was Devin Booker, and you talk about that relationship. I find Devin Booker to be irritating. He tried to hurt Ant a couple years ago in the playoffs. He also has had run-ins with Klay Thompson and Luka. What's that relationship like? Does Ant tolerate Devin Booker? Does he like him? Does he just was nice to him because he was a teammate?
There became a respect that grew and a bit of a friendship that grew. And I got to talk to Devin Booker for a couple minutes one day. And he said, that's what happens in the Olympics. You know, you go from being rivals and you're eating dinners and you're doing things with each other. And all of a sudden you become friends. There was definitely some competition there at the beginning because, you know, Ant came into Team USA camp. He wanted to start. You know, he didn't want to be coming off the bench. And Devin Booker was the one that was in his way for the starting two guard spot. So there was definitely some competition there. But next thing you know, in Las Vegas, while they're practicing, they're going out to the casinos together. Their friends are hanging out with each other. Yeah. And the more they got to spend time off the court with each other, a friendship grew and a respect grew. And the other thing that Ant appreciated about Devin in the Olympics was that he changed his game. He wasn't, you know, the player that he was or is for the Phoenix Suns. He's more of a role player. He does the little things. He defends more. He's not looking for a shot as much. He fits into the team dynamic. And, you know, one of Ant's people, Justin Holland, his business manager, said that really earned Ant's respect. Like, Ant really appreciated that about what Devin Booker did for the team in the Olympics. And it garnered a lot of goodwill. And so now they very much go at it on the court still, but off the court now you'll see them, you know, greeting each other, talking to each other. I don't think that was necessarily the case last season.
Does any of Ant's support group, because he has his friends from Atlanta with him, have any of them read the book and made any comments, good or bad?
I sent it to them. I don't know or I sent it to a few people. I don't know how many people have actually read it. I put out an excerpt today. I heard back from one of them today that said they got chills reading it. So I was, you know, reliving kind of the draft process there. Right. And so I haven't heard too many comments. I had one of his people read it. especially the early chapters, just to make sure facts and names and when ages were accurate and all that stuff. So, but haven't heard much feedback in terms of just overall, how they like it.
Good luck with the book, Chris. I think it's wonderful. I think the young kids are going to like reading about Anthony Edwards.
Mm-hmm.
It is now time, ladies and gentlemen. We have some fun planned for you today. We have Chris's top 5 movies of all time. And then because we're both Frasier fans, it was Chris's idea. Let's do the top 5 Frasier episodes of all time. Let us start with your top 5 movies of all time.
Yes. So number 1, one of my favorite movies of all time, predicted where the media landscape was going well ahead of its time. And it is the movie Network. Great
movie. And others have mentioned it in their top 5 on The Life Gorgeous.
Yes, I've heard that before.
Tremendous.
So I knew I wasn't coming in with anything new here, but hey, it's one of my top 5 movies. It's cemented in there. Absolutely. Number 2, I went with another movie with the name Network in it, or the word network in it, Social Network.
Yep.
Which I think, again, was very predictive of where we are as a society and showing kind of Facebook's birth. And I just think it's interesting to see like the sort of, I don't know what the word is, insidiousness or whatever that created Facebook and how that manifested all these years later, in terms of what Facebook eventually became. And I'm a sucker for Aaron Sorkin's writing too. So
I love Aaron Sorkin's writing, A Few Good Men. And his famous quote that I like is, he likes the sound of intelligent people arguing.
Yes.
So I always enjoy that. He's great.
And next on my list is, this is another part of my personality. I'm an openly gay sports writer, so there's some things about me that that don't fit into a typical box of what you think a sports writer would like. And so my next choice is Mean Girls.
That's right, Mean Girls.
Yes. I think it's one of the funniest movies of all time. I really do. Like, it's just, it hits it. Even the throwaway lines are quotable. Like, just the whole dynamic, Regina George, her squad, so to speak. Just it hits so many funny notes for me, and I loved it when it came out. And 20 years later or so, it still is a hilarious watch to me.
Did you ever see the movie called Tootsie with Dustin Hoffman?
I did, once upon a time. Yes.
Never rewatched it.
Never rewatched it though. It was one of those where I enjoyed it, but didn't have the the staying power with me to rewatch it. But very good movie. And
it's actually better than Mean Girls. No,
you think so? Listen, I'm not going to argue with you. It's your opinion. Next on my list, again, we're going comedy here, and just because this hit my funny bone in a movie theater harder than any movie ever has, and that's Anchorman. As the Will Ferrell stretch there, and you were part of it with Old School, and it was just that run of movies in the mid 2000s to late 2000s was right in my wheelhouse as well. Steve Carell as Brick Tamland. I have not laughed harder than Steve Carell as Brick Tamland. So Anchorman's on there. And my number 1 movie, little heartfelt, and I can relate to this as somebody who travels a lot, who has had relationships and things like that affected by how much they travel. It's Up in the Air from I think it was 2009 with George Clooney. And there's a twist in that movie that is the most heartbreaking twist I've ever seen in a movie, where listen, I'm going to spoil it because we're 16 years out from that movie being released. So he falls in love with this woman, and he goes to Chicago to surprise her. He knocks on her door, and he realizes that she has a whole family. She has she has a husband. She's got kids, and she's like, "What are you doing here? You need to not be here right now." And basically, he's the side piece, so to speak, for her. And it's just so heartbreaking. And I felt that moment. I felt that moment on a few levels. So Yeah, that's my number one movie. Up in
Those
there.
are good. Those are good. I think my favorite Clooney movie is Michael Clayton. Have you ever seen that?
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah.
like that.
I like Good Night and Good Luck too.
Yeah.
Again, sucker. I'm sucker for, as you can tell from the list, sucker for movies that involve media.
Yeah.
So. Good Night and Good Luck was also a good one for me.
And we are moving to top 5 Frasier episodes of all time. I consider Frasier, well, it's my favorite. I don't know if I consider it the best, but it's my favorite sitcom of all time. I know, Chris, you like Frasier. I'm going to start with my 5, and then we'll get your 5. And I wanted to say that sometimes I don't remember the episodes. I know that you're kind of an encyclopedia of the season and the episode number.
That's right.
But I like certain quotes. Frasier, you're not famous anymore. I remember that scene where he hadn't worked for a while and he was getting chunky and eating a lot. And I don't remember the whole episode, but I didn't list it. And then another time he's getting a massage, he's kind of out of it, and he goes to Daphne, "Oh, Niles is crazy about you. He's crazy about you." Felicity Huffman playing Pictionary, and they get in an argument. Get out and give me my hand towel.
Give me
Love
my
that.
hand towel. Yes.
Dr. Mary episode I almost had in my top 5. I love that with Niles and Frasier when they role play. And the Seal Award one where his family didn't think he was dating this supermodel. And at the end, she comes in and yells at him and they all see it. And then he's like, "How you like me now?
How do you like me now?" That episode it's the season 5 premiere. And I think it's Frasier's Imaginary Friend is the episode title. And It has one of my favorite lines ever. It's not in my top 5, but it has one of my favorite lines, which is something along the lines of like, my girlfriend is a model who I stole from a professional football player, and she's off in the Galapagos Islands artificially inseminating iguanas.
Exactly.
Is that so hard to believe?
Yeah, it was a long sentence, and they just rolled their eyes. Here are my top 5. One of them,
let's go.
Not in order, just, but this one, and I know I talked to you about it one time, where sometimes the Frasier is not always about comedy. It's about that wonderful romance between Niles, the hidden romance, the infatuation Niles has with Daphne. So I have Moondance. Moondance, and she kicks her leg up because she's a dancer, and it's a really fun one. Number 2, I have Out with Dad, season 7, episode 15. I wrote that down. That's the opera, and they come back to Frasier's place, and they have to act gay to throw off the guy who is gay hitting on Frasier. The 2 Mrs. Cranes, Clive comes over and they fight over him. A rare Roz and Daphne fighting and attacking each other.
Yeah.
And then this other one, I don't know. The doctor's out. I thought it's weird where sometimes the best scene is in the middle or beginning. This is Patrick Stewart, but this is when Frasier's wearing the tight tennis shorts and goes down into the bar, the gay bar, and then Niles comes in and he says, "Take me, get out of here!" And they turn the music down, but that was very funny. And then Ham Radio, which a lot of people like. Those are my 5.
Which a lot of people like. Yeah, that's your 5. Ham Radio is on my list. That's my number 2.
Yes,
Ham Radio is number 2. That is the consensus number 1, I think, among the fan base.
Really,
when you go to the comment threads and the Reddit boards, I think everybody loves Ham Radio.
Okay,
like even if it's not number 1, everybody's like, this is one of the best episodes of Frasier. At number 5, I have an episode that is not traditionally thought of as a big Frasier episode. It's called Mixed Doubles from season 4, and it's where Daphne breaks up with the guy she's dating and then immediately starts dating a copy of Niles, essentially.
Yes, a guy that looks a little like he's a kind of a small framed.
Yep.
Would we say effete?
Obsessive compulsive as well.
Yes.
Yeah. A guy named Rodney, that was his name. And it has a moment that culminates with Niles smashing Frasier's Wives of Henry VIII teacup set, or one of the teacups, one of the Wives of Henry VIII. After Frasier was very excited that he had just completed his set of 6 Henry VIII teacups, and then Niles smashes one of them at the
Right.
end of the scene. But that episode also has a fun scene between Niles and Roz, which you don't always get the two of them on their own.
Yeah.
And like they're always a part of maybe a larger group or with Frasier or whatnot. But having like just a scene of Roz and Niles was fun, and I think that was a cool dynamic to that episode. Next on my list, I have Room Service, which is from season 5, and that's where Niles and Lilith end up sleeping together drunkenly one night, and
that was crazy.
That was a crazy episode.
Whoa.
And the way that sprawls for the last 10 minutes of the episode, classic, just hilarious, and David Hyde Pierce again, just amazing in that episode. I have number 3 is my excuse me, my Joe Keenan slot, as I'm calling it. You mentioned in your top 5, I think you had 3 Joe Keenan episodes in your top 5. So 2 Mrs. Cranes, Out with Dad, and The Doctor Is Out were all written. Wow. Were all written by Joe Keenan.
Wow!
And I could populate my top 5 with Joe Keenan episodes too, because he was, to me, Frasier had a lot of great writers, but the best episodes, the farcical episodes that were kind of outlandish, over the top, but hilarious, they were all written by Joe Keenan, who's this amazing writer. And so I limited myself to 1 Joe Keenan episode in my top 5, and I chose the 2 Mrs. Cranes.
Okay.
Because I just love the way it keeps adding and piling on. The lies keep getting deep.
Right.
The thing that sells it for me is when Niles tells Daphne, when he has to pretend to be her husband, and he's like, "You have to pay the love toll. Too much. Here's your change."
That's right. That's funny.
I will rewatch that clip 3 or 4 times whenever I watch that episode. Number 2 was Ham Radio for me, and number 1, I know you're maybe not the biggest fan of this episode, but I love this episode. And some classic lines in this episode. So a classic moment involving Daphne and an eel. And it's The Innkeepers from season 2, where Frasier and Niles inexplicably open a huge, expensive restaurant for one episode, and then they never really address it again the rest of the series.
I thought it was a bit of a non sequitur, and I didn't know, as I'm watching, I go, it's too over the top. This must be a dream that they're owning a restaurant. But it's over the top, but it's not one of my favorites, but you're forgiven, just like with Tootsie, not rewatching Tootsie. I like to forgive.
I appreciate that. I will say, to tie this all back together, watching Frasier episodes while I was writing the book was my calming kind of thing. What I would do late at night, like I would get done writing, I'd be lying in bed, and I'd turn on a couple Frasier episodes just to put myself in a good mood and put a smile on my face at the end of the day. That's really what I did when I was writing the book.
Out with Dad, really, I just think, you said the 2 Mrs. Cranes, which I have that, but I just found Out with Dad. Didn't Marty Crane have to pretend that Niles was his boyfriend, or was it the other way around? It's just it made me laugh.
It made me laugh too. See, that's the part where I said that was as funny as that was a little too over the top for me to include in my top 5. That was the nitpick that I didn't include that one. Otherwise, hilarious episode. With the line, "How many straight men remember Renata Tebaldi?" after Frasier had just been talking about Renata Tebaldi.
That's funny.
Hilarious.
Okay, very good. There's a special skill, ladies and gentlemen, that Chris Hine has. Years ago, my brother, I used to have people test his vocabulary, and he always got it. And then there was one time, the last time, he said, "Gosh, I had to look that word up 2 weeks ago." So then I stopped, because I never wanted my brother to get stumped with a vocabulary word. You've never been stumped. I think I've played this with you 3 times.
I've been stumped by other people before on this.
Okay.
So it's happened.
Tell them your skill.
You can name a date in the last 30 years or so, from about 95 onward, and I could either tell you, or I could come very close to telling you what the #1 song in the country was on that particular date.
Amazing. That's amazing. And this is what, Billboard? Is that
The
what's
Billboard
the
Hot 100. Yeah, that's
Okay.
the standard of popular songs in the country. So,
So
you
I'm
got
gonna
a
name a
date
date.
for me. Go ahead, hit me.
I'm gonna name my birthday, August 24th, back in 2004, which was right before I left late night. I left late night, gracefully
Okay.
exited to a
Mhm.
life of leisure, the life
Great.
gorgeous. August 24th, 2004.
So this was a big year for Usher. 2004, he dominated the charts with his Confessions album. But that might have been a little early for Usher. It was also a big year for hip hop. So I'm going to go with the song. I'm going to say "Lean Back." I think that was
Okay.
that was a good. "Lean Back" was number one for a little while. It was either "Slow Motion" or "Lean Back." Those songs hit at the same time. So you said what, August? I can look it
let's
up.
look this up. August 24th, 2004.
2004.
Billboard #1.
I've got "Lean Back." I was right.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
And there it is. There it is. "Lean Back" by the Terror Squad.
The Terror Squad. That's right.
Boy, they've gone on to a lot of success. The Terror Squad.
Hey, they had a #1 hit on the Billboard Hot 100 in 2004.
Very good.
Can't take that away from them.
What a gift. When you're able to do it, is there a rush like you have a big Starbucks right in front of you, a big cup, and you're feeling caffeinated and high when you get it right?
It's fun when I know it, or when
Right.
when I have a good chance of knowing it. There are some songs that were only #1 for 1 week, and if you pick one of those dates, I'm probably not going to get it because it's such a small sliver of time. But if you pick a song or a date where a song was #1 for like 3 months,
Right.
which can happen, then I know it pretty easily. Yeah, that's the trick. Is like there are stretches of time where songs were #1 for a long time.
Right.
And you can, as long as you know that what that year and time of year was, you could probably get it.
You know, the last time I used to listen to, I call it top 40, but in the 80s, and then I kind of stopped in the 90s. You reach an age where you don't really pay attention to it too much, because someone in the 90s said, Boys to Men has the longest #1. And I was like, I don't even care. I don't know what this is. And I don't care what that song is and stuff. Because I listen to Miles Davis and Sinatra and Nat King Cole and Chet Baker. And I listen to my 80s music sometimes.
They set that record like 3 different times in the 90s, by the way.
Oh, wow.
And with my girl Mariah for 16 weeks at #1 with "One Sweet Day."
I told you my favorite Mariah song, right? "We Belong Together."
We Belong Together. Yeah.
How was that? Did that do well?
14 weeks at #1 in 2005. So that's one of the songs I'm talking about. Like if you had said any date in the summer of 2005, it would have been "We Belong Together" by Mariah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Craig.
Good luck with the book. It's called The Story of Anthony Edwards, and you can order it, and it comes out in June.
Yes, and hopefully I'll see you in Los Angeles coming up here.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's our show. I want to thank Chris Hine. We'll see you next time. And remember, young people, I'm proud of you.